In the year 536 AD, the Byzantine historian Procopius looked up at the sky over Constantinople and recorded something terrifying. He wrote, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during the whole year." We often associate the worst years in history with global wars or pathogens, but for the people living through 536, the crisis was defined by a bizarre, suffocating darkness that refused to lift. Over in Italy, the Roman statesman Cassiodorus reported that the sun's rays were so weak that people cast no shadows on the ground at high noon. Thousands of miles away in China, imperial records described yellow dust falling like snow. Summer frosts destroyed the crops, triggering a massive famine where up to 80% of the population in some regions starved to death. And in Ireland, the local chronicles for that year contain an ominous, incredibly brief entry. They simply noted a complete failure of bread. Because there was no invading army or obvious natural disaster to blame, modern historians looked at these scattered accounts and dismissed them. For centuries, this global blackout was written off as a myth or just exaggerated weather, effectively erasing it from the historical record. The first physical break in this 1,400-year-old story didn't come until the 1990s, when researchers began analyzing the rings of ancient Irish oak trees. Tree rings act like environmental hard drives. Wide rings mean healthy, warm summers. But exactly at the mark for the year 536 AD, the rings show a sudden collapse, compressing into tight, narrow bands. This botanical data confirmed that Procopius and Cassiodorus were telling the truth. Something physical had genuinely blocked the sun across the entire northern hemisphere. But while the oak trees proved a global catastrophe occurred, they couldn't identify the specific trigger. Scientists had to search for the chemical evidence inside a completely different ecosystem. High in the Swiss Alps, the Colle-Gneffeti Glacier preserves a 72-meter-deep record of atmospheric history. This image shows an ice core segment pulled from that glacier. Using lasers, researchers carved slivers just 120 microns thick, tracking weather week by week. Deep inside the layer matching the spring of 536 AD, they found microscopic particles of volcanic glass, known as tephra. By bombarding these glass shards with X-rays, scientists can read their chemical fingerprint. While there is still some scholarly debate, the particles in this core strongly match the chemistry of a cataclysmic, unrecorded volcanic eruption in Iceland. The ice revealed one more horrific piece of data. The nightmare didn't end in 536. Two additional massive volcanic eruptions followed right behind it, one in 540 and another in 547. By reading frozen, microscopic dust, researchers finally identified why the world went dark. The disaster was purely environmental, a cluster of massive volcanic eruptions that had left absolutely no surviving eyewitness accounts. This chart maps the sharp drop in temperatures. The volcanoes spewed massive amounts of aerosols into the atmosphere, reflecting sunlight and dropping European summers by 2.5 degrees Celsius. This initiated the late antique Little Ice Age, the coldest decade in 2,000 years. For the people living underneath that aerosol veil, this meant 5 consecutive years of failed harvests. Populations across the globe were left starving, their immune systems severely compromised by malnutrition and the bitter cold. The breaking point arrived in 541 AD. With the population already weak, bubonic plague arrived at the Roman port of Pelusium in Egypt. What became known as the Plague of Justinian spread rapidly across the Mediterranean. It eventually wiped out up to half of the population of the Eastern Roman Empire. The combination of volcanic winter and rampant disease halted trade and industry. Europe plunged into a period of profound economic stagnation that would last for nearly a full century. The worst year in human history resulted not from human conflict, but from an invisible environmental trigger that broke the ancient world. If a volcano that nobody even saw erupt could bend a century of human history, we have to ask, how many other major historical turning points are wrongly credited to human leaders simply because the real cause left no witnesses?